Good morning, y'all, and in case y'all haven't heard, breaking news to start off the morning, Dan Hurley is now being targeted to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and this is wildly interesting for a variety of reasons, and not just the obvious ones, but I guess that's what we're going to go into here anyway, especially with the guy that Coach Hurley shares a photo with, but we'll talk about the coach here first, obviously coming off of winning back-to-back national championships with the UConn Huskies. And, I mean, why wouldn't you want this guy as your head coach? He shows each and every single intangible of a coach that you would want. And it's interesting because, as I understand it into my memory, this is the first time that the Lakers have actually looked into hiring a head coach from the college ranks since Coach K. I mean, all the other coaches that they've had since Phil Jackson's departure after the 2011 season, I remember that being, yeah. It was just one after another, from Mike Brown to Mike D'Antoni to, of course, Frank Vogel, who won the championship with LeBron and AD back in the bubble, and, of course, most recently Darvin Ham, just to name a few. And interestingly enough, LeBron himself alone has had just as many, if not maybe a couple more coaches than that. But the real interesting thing to me about this is really the timing, if nothing else. I just find it incredibly wild, and I'm going into that here in just a moment, but Dan Hurley just came through and stole all sorts of thunder, regardless of whoever the leading candidates were. Again, about to go into that in a moment. And to have that happen so suddenly, especially on the morning of Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I don't know why I was about to say Game 7, but we're getting to go into that here momentarily as well. I'm going to be interested to see where this goes. Largely because, again, numerous head coaches since Phil Jackson. I don't know necessarily that I see a scenario that Dan Hurley is fired on some sort of whim, but the thing is, he's susceptible to it, especially if he decides to accept this offer. I mean, I don't know which way I would go about it. It's a little bit tricky because now, with the difference between coaching in the college ranks now and back when it was Coach K that was being looked at, things are different. You've got NIL. Those influence a lot of happenings within the confines of a lot of programs. Things are changed significantly because of that, and in all honesty, it's not going to be too much different than what you're going to see here. Now, I'm not really sure whether I see this translating or not. I'm pretty confident it will, but it only does so long as they actually stick with him. And that's going to be regardless of AD's feelings, as he's ultimately going to be the one that's sticking around anyway. But at the end of the day, I just feel like we can't let that matter, and I don't know that LeBron himself matters as much, especially when you factor in Bronny. But I don't know, I guess we'll see where it goes, because we're just going to transition to the other piece of it that I wanted to talk about here. JJ Redick, I mean, what does this mean for him? Obviously, it seems as though he's more likely going to be fully focused now on the NBA Finals and nothing but, again, starting tonight, I believe that's 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain Standard Time. Either 8 or 9 Eastern, 6 or 7 Mountain. But anyway, it was just wild because it seemed like JJ was the lead horse in this race. No one else stood out for whatever the reason may be. I heard about a couple of other former coaches. I can't remember. Actually, not former coaches. I believe it's it was the former coach of the Cavs. I'm not real sure. He had something to do with the Cavs, and I can't remember his name. But they were looking at him heavy. But a lot more of the talk had been heavily on JJ Redick. Up until this morning, anyway. So, I don't know. And it was interesting because JJ and LeBron had been on a couple of podcasts together recently. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. But again, this is something to where I just can't say this enough. For this to work out, they can't afford to just hop from one coach to another. And it's interesting that I'm going to be talking about the Celtics here in a moment, because look at the contrast. And not even just that contrast, but again, the contrast going back to how things have been since Phil Jackson departed. Okay? Now, given that that's been the case, you want to think that if you're going to go a different direction, you've got to build a really, really strong staff the way that you would have back in the day, especially when it goes back to the likes of Pat Riley, who I believe was able to transition to Mike Dunleavy Sr., and I'm pretty sure it goes on and on from there as well, but they were able to build things from within, and I'm thinking at some point or another they're going to have to find a way to make that sort of thing work, because, again, look at the Celtics now as... What a segue. What a segue. I'm rolling right now with this one. It's time, y'all. So we're going to get this prediction in, as I'm not going to have any other chance to do so at any point before the game tonight. So, here's where we are at with this. The Mavericks, they're nothing short of a buzzsaw waiting to just lop off any and everything that the opponent has to offer. In this case, it is the Boston Celtics. The only thing is, the Celtics are a little bit different in a sense, and really they're actually similar also, because they do a lot of the same things. They can play the same type of ball. I mean, just the way they have their starting lineups navigated in terms of, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and of course Porzingis, who is expected to start tonight. And with that in mind, I think about just the fact that, especially traditionally speaking, this is actually something of a small lineup. Now, maybe you could argue not so much, just for the fact that Jason Tatum is built enough to be a power forward, especially in today's NBA, and actually now he's built to where he could have been a power forward back in the day as well. He would have actually adapted to the game just as well as any star would have today back then. And the same is true for any of the stars back then in today's game, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about these matchups, and for me, just going 1 through 10, honestly, it's pretty tough no matter how you slice it up. But again, the difference is Kristaps Porzingis. Now, if Porzingis is healthy and he's able to actually produce the numbers that he's been able to produce for the Celtics, it obviously makes things that much easier for Brown and Tatum. And of course, something else that a lot of people don't think about is what you get out of Drew Holiday, who, much like a Kyrie Irving, has a championship ring. Now, the thing about it is that Luka and Kyrie are not to be denied in this series either. I mean, you're not going to see anything less than a bionic effort from all parties involved, really. But certainly the likes of Luka and Kyrie, and I'm definitely expecting that. At the very least, out of Jaylen Brown. Certainly Jason Tatum, because expectations are real heavy on him, especially going back to the 22 finals where they had lost to the Golden State Warriors. But I'm looking at it from the perspective also, where I'm standing my ground on the debate of who's the best player on the Celtics, and for me it's still Jaylen Brown. But the reason for that is something that a lot of people haven't talked about as much as I would like to have thought they would have, especially at this point. You see, a lot of what you're seeing right now with the Celtics is every bit of what you're seeing from back in 2022, but better. And the funny thing about it is that all of this is without Marcus Smart. And I'm here to tell you right now, Porzingis or not, if Marcus Smart is still on this roster, Dallas is not winning this series. I don't care what you say. If it's Marcus Smart, oh no, and I would actually be picking him as my dark horse to win the Finals MVP. But obviously that's not going to be the case here. Now, other intangibles that fall into this are the likes of Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. But are they going to be able to cover Porzingis when he's out there stretching the floor, especially knowing that he can take some pretty deep ones and make them? And there's a very good chance, especially as long as he's right, he's going to be doing that throughout this series, and he's going to be a factor. I'm not saying he'll be the Finals MVP. Again, I'm looking at either Brown or Tatum on that one, but he's going to be the difference on this, and so long as he's healthy, I got the Celtics in 5. If not, I'm going to say more like 6 or 7, but it's going to be the kind of thing to where it was like I had told friends back in 2016 with the Warriors and the aforementioned Warriors and Cavs. I felt like that series was going to go 7, and it was going to be Golden State that won it, but the Cavs could win. It's the same scenario here where anything could happen, especially if you have those stretches where you've got Luka and Kyrie keeping it close. And that's really, really dangerous, even for the Celtics. But with that in mind, let me know what y'all think. Who y'all got? Like I said, Celtics, one way or another, with Porzingis in 5, without 7. I can't really go too much any other way than that. But yeah, let me know what y'all think, who y'all got in that, what y'all think about the Lakers situation. And I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. Y'all know what it is. Like, share, subscribe if y'all are new. And I'll see y'all.